Hi guys, welcome. It's Monday, 11 o'clock. It's Phil here in England. I hope it's sunny and warm where you are. It's a little bit grey out here. Whilst we're waiting for people to join the seminar, I've just discovered this amazing thing on Facebook, if I can touch it, where it adds, adds bizarre headdresses to me. But maybe we shouldn't do that, because today we're going to be talking about flow states. So in the last few videos I've been talking about how it's kind of important to think about what state you're in. We've talked about that many times before. But what if we decide every day what state we're going to inhabit as a kind of backdrop for everything that happens in that day? If we can do that, then whatever does occur in the day will be filtered through that way of thinking. And that can be a really useful way of just approaching anything. It gives you a more predictable response to the stuff of life. So today we're going to talk about flow states. Flow states particularly are going to look at what's it like to be present, what's it like to be in the zone, to be at your best. So where do flow states come from? Well, the term flow has kind of been coined by a guy called Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who is a very, very famous psychologist. He's still around. I saw him a couple of years ago at a conference, and he was one of the co-founders of the positive psychology movement along with Marty Seligman. And what he was particularly interested in was how do artists paint, because often when you notice when some artists were painting, they kind of went somewhere else, and quite often you could try and talk to them, they wouldn't even hear you. They'd be so engaged and absorbed in what they were doing, and when they were, they seemed to produce better work. And when he did lots of interviews with them, and the word flow kept on coming up, or at least this sense of being in a river, this sense of movement. So a flow state is defined as one of those times where you become completely immersed and absorbed in whatever you're doing. That the thing you're doing is usually something you enjoy, something that feels good. That there's usually some value to the thing that you're doing. That you can get some kind of feedback that what you're doing is moving in the direction you want to. And everything else seems to kind of fade out into the background. But as soon as you start to look at flow states, you notice that actually they show up in all sorts of other literature. So in hypnosis, for instance, Erickson talks about what he calls naturally occurring trances or naturally occurring states, where a great example is driving down the motorway. People will find themselves in the car driving down the motorway, and they see junction 2, junction 3, junction 4. The next junction they notice is junction 7. So there's a bunch of junctions that have just disappeared from their consciousness, and yet they've been completely capable of driving safely the whole way down that motorway, you know, avoiding traffic, switching lanes, all that kind of thing. So that's equally a flow state. If you look at any Eastern philosophies, there's all over the place you'll see flow states, the sense of being present, the sense of choosing to how to be in this moment, being absorbed. There's some really interesting commentaries from people like Ayrton Senna, the Formula 1 racing driver, who talked about one particular race when he was in his car, and in Formula 1 they have the same cars, so the same technology. He's got his team member, and he was like far ahead of his other team member. And he talked about, I just almost wasn't there. It seemed to be happening on an unconscious level. Artists again talk about it, musicians talk about it. When a musician is in the flow state, there's actually different changes in the way they breathe, the way their blood vessels dilate, their blood pressure, all sorts of things change. So what are flow states? Well, fundamentally for you and me, flow state is anything that for you is really, really absorbing, where particularly time seems to disappear, where everything peripheral that's not part of what you're doing just fades into the background. And actually, when you look at it, we have flow states in many different places in our lives. I'm going to give you some examples, but if you're watching, I can see a few people are. Then just jot them down in the comments to be really useful. So time for you that meets these criteria. something you like doing, something you find absorbing or immersing, something where time seems to just disappear, and something that you kind of want to do again because it feels so nice. And when having done it, you almost feel like you've been on a little holiday. So classic examples are people reading books. You know, if you read one of those great books where you just get so absorbed, then after a while you don't even notice yourself turning the pages. You just become immersed in that story, and time can just disappear. The same with physical activities. Often swimming, people talk about, you get to a point in a swim or a run where you become the swim or you become the run. You just get into that rhythmical pattern. You don't even notice you being there anymore because you are so part of the whole experience. If you play a musical instrument or listen to music, then that can be a very, very absorbing quality that takes you again into one of these flow states where, again, time just seems to disappear, you become deeply absorbed, and it just feels there's something about it. One of the most popular sports in Britain, and I think probably around the world, is fishing. And I think one of the reasons people love fishing so much is because it naturally puts them in a flow state. They're just sitting there, absorbed in that moment, watching usually the water run past them in some way, watching the line or the float, and just having that absorption, and time just seems to disappear. So as you think about it, what for you is something that allows you to get into that place where you feel deeply at peace, present to the moment that you're being present to, absorbed, where time seems to disappear, where it seems that's all there is, that whatever is taking your attention is all that there is. So just jot them down in the comments section. Be interesting to see what for you recognise is something that's a flow state for you. As you do that, I'm just going to help you to develop a sense of flow. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like to think about, for you, something that you find very, very absorbing. And again, this is probably going to make you quite spaced out because you're going to be focusing on a flow state. So if you should be paying attention to driving or machinery, then watch this later. But if it's safe and reasonable and comfortable for you to do, just think for you, okay, what for me is something that completely gets my attention in this really kind of peaceful, present way that I can just lose myself in. And as you take yourself back to that experience, really, really feel what it feels like start to have those qualities of being in that flow state, just starting to become part of your experience. And when we're in a flow state, we probably don't even notice we are because we're not really there in that way. But we get that sense of being really part of what we're doing. Everything else just seems to fade. And we become more and more enmeshed, entrained and immersed into the experience. Maybe you can start to begin to notice the first things that let you know that that's happening. It may be a shift in your breathing. It may be this sense of whatever it is that you're focusing just takes up your whole mental landscape. It may be a stillness within you, which may happen even if you are moving. Some people, there's a rhythm to it. So with music, riding, running, swimming, there's this kind of rhythmicity to it. Notice how your body feels as you start to reconnect with that feeling. Where do you feel that? What's your relationship to space, to time? How does this feel? Are you aware of your body, or has that just kind of disappeared? What is it that takes your attention? in this very special place. And as you reconnect with it, notice, what does that teach you? What do you learn as a result of being in this very calm, very focused, very flowing, very natural and familiar state? If we were to look at your physiology, you would find that when you're in this state, your blood pressure will probably have reduced hugely. Your heart rate will probably have slowed. Your breathing will become calmer. And we know, of course, these are good things for us. The more we access these physiological changes, the more our body feels comfortable, the more it switches into parasympathetic nervous system activity, which is the healing part of our nervous system. The more it resets. There's some research at the moment about the importance of fasting, that if you fast for 72 hours, they've started to find amazing changes in our immune system function. It's interesting research. It's research that people don't usually put money into because nobody really gains from it. No food company can sell more food and so on. So it's taken a long time to do it, but that's what they found. To some extent, flow states are a little bit like fasting. Instead of the busyness we normally have of flitting from one thing to another, so taking a break, immersing ourselves in one particular nurturing state. So you could wonder, what kind of physiological effect will that have? This mental fasting, instead of the busyness, slowing everything down. So today what I'd like you to do is just think about, when are you in flow states? Notice when you are. Hopefully today you'll be in a flow state lots of times. If you're not, then you need to do some work on getting into flow states by thinking about, what is it that brings that to me, because it's really important. But every time you are in a flow state, notice it. Be aware of it, either during or afterwards. Notice how you feel. Start to seek out more things that naturally encourage that flow state, and start to think about how you can take yourself into that flow state, whatever you're doing. Because if you can be in that state when you're doing anything, then you'll be more effective at doing that thing. So I hope you found that useful. I'll see you guys soon on the next one. Bye.